Good day and welcome. Today we'll be talking about navigate operational challenges and maximize labor productivity with complete intralogistics solutions. We like big titles. What you need to remember simply is we're going to talk about challenges and how to overcome labor productivity issues in the workplace. We're going to talk about that. My name is Keith Ingalls. I'm the Raymond Lean Management Manager for our Solutions and Support Centers. I help coach our team and our customers in our field in continuous improvement. With me today, one of my favorite resources to work and speak with, Mr. Derek Miller. Derek?
Hi, everyone. I'm on the warehouse side of the Raymond Corporation, so think of that as more the technology and advanced initiatives and consulting side of the business beyond just what people may traditionally think of the Raymond Corporation as doing. Get in the right spot here so I don't get the feedback. The agenda.
So we're going to talk about end-to-end intralogistics solutions. So today's logistics challenges are across the supply chain, as we know. We're going to talk about using lean management or continuous improvement methods and thinking to resolve your issues. We're going to talk about how to recognize some of the key issues in your workplace and also how not to become overwhelmed by the number of challenges, but to pick your targets target by target. We're going to talk about just a little bit of some of the connection technology, the information available today, and how to turn that into useful decision-making tools. We're also going to talk about some key elements in finding a good partnering provider, someone who's going to go beyond being a vendor with you to support you in your solutions and these challenges.
So a lot of people,
Sorry about the feedback.
We'll find the right spot, I swear. This way? All right. So a lot of what we're talking about is intralogistics solutions, and a lot of people will come up and say, what does that even mean, right? And generally, everything's becoming more of a system. They work together, you get synergies from combining maybe technology A with B, or provider A's rack with someone else's lift truck, or how do I take an employee and insert them into this ecosystem, right? So it's more the concept of end to endless in terms of being able to find what you need and starting with identifying a problem and getting all the way to the end where you're solving that problem.
Too close to the speakers.
So one of the things we're going to really talk about today is that journey, right? So we want to make sure we're solving your labor challenges and you're maximizing productivity, whether it's because you've seen increased throughput or perhaps you've had labor issues or both, labor retention, just finding labor in the first place, and kind of the changing pace of the environment, being able to keep up with the demands that maybe your customers are putting on you as operators. So the journey really is what we like to say is this optimize, connect, automate process, right? So a lot of people, you'll come here, you'll see a lot of cool technology, but which one is the right one? How do I know if that's a good fit for my operation? And what do I need to do now in order to prepare for that in the future? So we say, let's look at the process, let's look at the challenges, identifying the challenges you're trying to solve. And then what can you do, whether it be leveraging data or leveraging existing technologies or maybe even some assist technologies, maybe not going full automation. Can you get some ROI there? And then really being targeted about where you make those strategic investments in automation. If you don't do the first couple steps, you may be automating something that didn't need to be automated in the first place, right? So you want to understand what the problem is and kind of back into it from there.
There's a need today to go faster and faster in our world. It's meeting customers' expectations. So if you think about optimize, connect, automate, it's really telling you slow down in order to speed up. If you slow down and really identify the challenges first and look at your processes and really define the problems you're trying to solve, connect to that information, then these exciting solutions you're seeing all around this seminar, this exhibit this week, are going to make more sense. You're going to get the right solution. So it's really about looking internal to your process first before you start making those equipment investments. In the optimize and connect solutions, there's a whole lot of different areas you can look at technology in. So it's easy to be overwhelmed by the various targets in your workplace, because if you start making a list of the challenges, it's hard to overcome. It's very critical that you choose a key challenge, or reduce at least to no more than 2 or 3, but preferably 1, and work on it piece by piece to resolve it and go forward. The analogy I like to share with people is it's like being at the bottom of a staircase. You don't try to leap to the top of the staircase, but you know your goal is the top. What you concentrate on is the next step. If you do that in the workplace, that slow down to speed up, it's going to give you the opportunity to understand and better place all this wonderful available technology in the right way to solve the problem that you're trying to overcome.
I think the biggest thing that Keith was just highlighting is this idea of iteration too, right? Not only do you pick a single thing and work on it, but you go through this cycle over and over and over again. Maybe the first pass is low-hanging fruit. You optimize, you get a little bit of gain there. Maybe it's a couple day evolution before you take on a couple week evolution, right? So then the next pass, maybe now you're adding a bit of technology or some level of software or enabling hardware for your employees to be able to scan faster, scan better, or make their job a little easier. Okay, then you take a step back, look at that process again. Now what is the next round? So a lot of times people look at this big elephant and say, I got to swallow it all at once. Right now it's very iterative, and a lot of times you start with just, instinct and observation, and as you work through, you can add tools, you pull in more data, you look at data in one way this time, and you look at it a different way to solve the next step, right? So it is very much a loop, and a lot of it is, as you see, and you've seen out on the floor, a lot of this is rooted in some of this connected technology that you see. Everything's generating data. What data do you digest first, and how do you take that data and make it actionable to make your next decision in terms of improvement?
In finding and solving the right problem, in my experience, people get very excited to move to the solution. And so it's easy to overcome the process of identifying the problem. I spoke to a group recently that had thrown a lot of solutions at an issue and hadn't really defined the problem very well first. So not surprisingly, their solutions didn't work very well. So this is that slow down to speed up during the optimized piece of the process. Make sure you have a well-defined problem, that you understand the challenge, and then start working through that problem process. If it's a constraint in your flow, if it's a defect rate, identify that challenge, give it focus, but spell it out. It's difficult to solve if it's not well-defined. By the reverse, if it's well-defined, usually the answer is fairly simple, and you can get the team on board with the direction very quickly and very easily, versus something that's hard and difficult to communicate.
I also think to the second point is the data, right? So you may not need to invest in the tool to help your productivity per se, but what's going to inform your decisions moving forward? So the first thing I always ask is, what data is available already, right? Many of you probably, if you are in operations, have a warehouse management system or an ERP that's generating data, right? There may be some key high-level takeaways you can get from there. Maybe you've got a labor management system, right? And you have KPIs on your employee productivity, not just how productive they're being, but are they being efficient in terms of pick paths or that type of thing. You can take that data and decide, where am I going to spend my time? But more importantly, it allows you to help you measure pre-post, right? So what was my current baseline, and what is it going to look like after I've enacted some change? When I went through that loop, did I gain? What was my ROI there? And is it worth continuing? Or maybe I got what I needed and I move on to the next problem. Or I didn't get everywhere I wanted to, but based on what I was able to do with the first pass, I think it is worth making that investment for a connected technology or adding a tool or integrating something. So part of the decision-making process in my mind is often understanding cost, right? So a lot of times people will come up to us and say, how much does that automated forklift cost? Or, what if I threw a conveyor at the problem, right? I'm having a hard time with matching throughput based on my team. I'm gonna throw a conveyor at it. And if you don't really understand a baseline of cost, that becomes a very hard conversation to have. And at what point do you know, you got an ROI? So I always like to go all the way down to kind of an activity-based costing model, right? And you can do this again through labor management data or WMS data. But you get down to the point where you're saying, okay, when I'm doing put away, I process so many widgets and it costs me 27 cents. Through the analysis, I can actually scale that back by removing the travel component. You know, my teammate was running that product back and forth. Now I've invested in conveyor. That's going to be 30% reduction based on some studies or some pre-post analysis of that data. And you can actually back in and say, yes, that was a good opportunity. Or maybe you found out that in just looking at the process first pass, just changing some slotting so that the travel came down, that solved the problem. And now there's no longer the need or the use case or the financial case for that capital investment, right? So it's all about the data, making sure you're spending money, because everyone only has so much money to spend. So knowing what your pre-post costs are and knowing where you're going to get the best bang for your buck, maybe this year's project is really important.
Make sure in your process optimization that you define what success looks like for you. One of the challenges I find very frequently in the field is people have a desire for success, but maybe a fear of metrics. Make sure you have a key goal and specific metrics in mind when you look at your optimization process. With that target in mind now, as you take those small steps Derek was talking about, you're going to see your progress towards that goal. Even if the goal is uncertain, give it a metric. It gives you something to measure against. If you did better than you expected, great. If you did shorter than expected, now you have an opportunity to root cause and understand why in the process. So as you go through this, you're going to find, managing through resource constraints, you have more of what you need than you might believe. In the day-to-day rush in process optimization, our teams and our people get habits of that's just how we do it. And as leaders, it's important for you to take them out of that step back to how can we overcome a challenge? How can we make this easier? Easier is sustainable, easier is efficient, and reduces cost. So when you look at your optimization, the approach to continuous improvement is know that target, take those small steps, measure against a specific target area, and then understand why you did or did not hit it and continue to move forward. Get your team involved. They're going to have some wonderful, wonderful ideas. If you ask them, how do I make my work easier? Remember, easy is efficient and low cost and sustainable.
I think when you are looking at process optimization, one of the things that I've always seen is the people that know the right answer. I'm not moving, I swear. And people know the answer are the actual operators, right? So you ask them, how could it make your job a little more effective? And they'll tell you they don't want to do that extra walking. So if there's a way, they'll tell you it's a slotting issue, or maybe, hey, if you put this type of cart behind my lift, I can haul 3 pallets if I'm driving a train with a tugger versus 1 pallet at a time, eliminating some of that travel. So they're going to know, but not only will they help you increase your throughput or maybe do more with less, but they're also going to be happier in terms of customer and employee retention because they were part of the process, right? They were bought in and the ideas came from them and you championed their ideas.
Resource constraints in the workplace is a topic that can be easily overwhelming. I've never worked in one of our own facilities or at a customer didn't suffer an array of resource challenges, be it labor, supply, inventory, space, money. This is another one of those areas that can be challenging, and you can get too many targets in play at once and get overwhelmed. Find a key constraint and work on that, whatever that challenge is. The other thing is, if you put efforts into an area that's not a key constraint, it may yield benefit, but it's not helping your total throughput goal. So you have to find that pinch point in your operation and work on it piece by piece and go through it. That's what's going to solve your issue. If you create a focus on an area that's not that constraint, it may help the area, but your overall throughput goal is not going to yield the results you're looking for, and it's going to create frustration. Frustration is a good indicator that there's something in your process that's not working. Stop, figure that out and fix it, because frustration is what we're trying to eliminate, and it's a good indicator that we're going in the wrong direction.
So as we've been highlighting, I think one of the main things we've mostly been talking about is the optimize piece, right? The optimize, connect, automate piece. One, again, it makes your team more efficient if the processes are more efficient. Consistency and input is or employee retention, but also as you optimize, you're also standardizing, right? If you want to add connected technology to make the job easier, faster, more accurate, a lot of times that process has to be analyzed and optimized and standardized before you can throw that type of technology at it, right? If you have a highly variable process, it becomes quite the challenge to introduce technology into something that is unpredictable. So really you have to go through that first step, and then you can start saying, okay, how do I incentivize my teammates and make their life a little bit easier through that next step, which is the connect, or using data, giving operator assist type tools to make their job faster, easier, and more accurate.
Facility flow is talking about movement through your workplace. So when you're looking for challenges, when you're looking to identify that key constraint, things you're going to look for is if you have a highly congested area, if you have a lot of crossover in your operations, if you have a lot of traffic intersections, if you have an inventory buildup. You can use something like this as a spaghetti chart. It's got lines of movement on it. Generally speaking, if you do your spaghetti chart in your area and you feel the desire now to add sauce to your chart, I'm going to tell you that's a bad thing. You don't want a lot of lines in your flow. You want to have a smooth and easy operation. And these are one of those areas that it's easy to overlook. If you introduce automation in an area that's heavily congested, it won't yield the results you're looking for. You want that automation in a more standardized process, as Derek indicated.
I'm sure you've all been in the warehouse and saw a lot of people driving around, and there goes a lift with nothing on the forks, right? 5 minutes later, there it goes again, nothing on the forks. So optimizing travel is one of the biggest things we're looking to, focus on in terms of some of the technology we work on, some of the technologies that we've partnered with folks in bringing solutions to our customers is, optimize, optimize, optimize. But even through some of the connected technology options, right? For some people with WMS, some of you do interleaving, right? So it's tasking an employee to do the most convenient task based on their last activity. A lot of WMS systems don't do that, right? Or at least more legacy ones may not. So you do result in a lot of unnecessary travel. It's painful on the employee because they are just running all over the place, but also it requires much more labor to hit the same throughput when you don't have that type of efficiency. So where some people may say, hey, let's throw an automated truck on that process because of the travel requirement, maybe that is the end state. But leading into that, maybe it's just using the data from WMS to justify an add-on, or having a lean analysis completed of your operation to see maybe we slot things differently, or maybe we do put some conveyor in. It's just kind of it's a conversation, and it's going back to identifying that root cause of what the problem actually is before you start finding the solution. I know there's a lot of people here who would gladly sell you, automated vehicles all day long, but take a step back and work through a partnership to understand, is that the best solution for your application or your particular problem? So connected technologies, I think that's the next thing, right? So we've optimized the process, we've standardized the processes. Now it's what do you do from there, right? You want to make sure that the operation is safe. Pick accuracy is where it needs to be. Last thing, if you're struggling to get product out the door, the last thing you want is it coming back because it went to the wrong pallet or the wrong store or whatever. So we can start giving tools that maybe not full automation, but it's bridging that gap, right? It's not only enabling maybe a new employee to do their job better, easier, faster onboarding, but also it can be a situation where, it's a safety play, or we're using the data that's being generated off these systems to then further justify that next loop around that iterative process improvement cycle. So things like lasers, vehicle mounted lasers that could, if you've got new operators on unfamiliar equipment, dynamic environments. Yes, you've standardized the process, but things could happen that are non-standard. You can have situations like that where the tool makes the job easier for the employee. So that might be a safety component for you. Or you could be talking about other products where we want to keep the employee off the truck as much as possible, and again, eat your case pick environment. Or we want to make sure we're shipping to multiple customers and we have a big mispick problem that hits our throughput. Maybe we can have technology that takes the WMS data, the next pick assignment data, and makes the job a little bit easier on the operator. Getting the right product to the right place. Everyone knows the cost of a mispick is really high. So why not look at the opportunities to eliminate that where you can?
Another piece on this, sorry about that, is if you're getting the message we hope you'll take away, is it's very helpful to build this technology up in an integrated system step by step. Remember, you're introducing change in the workplace to your operators designed to help them work safer and more effectively. Change can be intimidating, even though we're surrounded by it. So in making your smooth, consistent investments in this technology, building it up piece by piece, allows your team, your associates, to adapt to the changes more readily, and they will embrace them. You always want your morale going up in the right direction because people want to contribute. So if morale is good, you're moving in the right direction. If you introduce too much too quickly and devastate morale, it's not going to yield the results you want. Not that everybody doesn't want to sell you a lot of technology, but we want to make sure it's the right phased into the operation.
Through one size fits all. So, other things, there's safety related tools that make it, communicate a sense of value to your employees from an employee retention perspective, but also we understand that as technology advances, there's usually a positive intent of that technology, but there's also a learning curve, right? So anything you can do, as what Keith was saying, you want to ease into it bit by bit, because if you throw it all at them, not only is change scary, but just general, if I throw you a new computer and a new phone and a new tablet, or you used to be an iPhone and now you're an Android, and I expect you to know it first thing right away, it doesn't work. So easing into the new technology and doing it in an iterative fashion usually proves to be the most successful. As you start easing into some of the more advanced technologies, they start becoming more connected, right? So I was talking about having data and having data drive your decisions. But oftentimes, now as you start looking at full automation or some of the other technologies out there, now you're talking about WMS integrations, middleware, IT projects. So one of the reasons why you want to ease into it is maybe there is a point where you say, okay, that's enough for me for this site. But the other site that's got 4 times the volume, maybe we do pull the trigger on that WMS integration there in order to increase pick accuracy or lift optimization, et cetera. So I think the kind of segueing off of what I was just saying is just the idea of a integrated system. We really look at most of our projects beyond just simple operator assist tools as a system, right? Because really we want, if you invest in this conveyor and that automation and this safety tool, we want to make sure that they all talk together and it's a 1 + 1 = 3 scenario in most cases, right? They can all operate on their own, but when they operate together, not only is it more effective, but the data is that much richer. So we really take a step back and say, okay, again, what is the problem you're trying to solve? Have we standardized the process? And then what is your 2, 3, 4-year plan in terms of where you want to be? We may only be doing one of those things at a time because we do it in that iterative fashion. But if we don't have an end state, what is the ultimate business objective? We could be halfway down the road and find out we're on the wrong road entirely. So we always look at everything as it may not be a system today, but it will be in the future. And we're going to just make sure that we're thinking through all of that as we're trying to figure out, what is the benefit to the business, what is the benefit to the employees, and what is the benefit to the throughput.
There's a lot going on in the workplace. So remember we talked about don't be overwhelmed by the various challenges. And when Derek says you're going to have a system in your operations, so there's two general ways to get to a system. They can be planned and executed, or they can evolve. If they evolve, that's kind of, they just start coming together piece by piece, and that's when you're going to start finding the systems don't talk well to one another, they don't integrate well, because you're doing it in piecemeal. So even though we're saying take small steps, as Derek mentioned, you need that long-term plan as everything comes together to a cohesive unit, or you'll get a system it'll be a system, but it won't integrate very well, and it won't yield the results you're looking for.
I think what we're looking at here is where we ultimately think we're going to be, and what we drive towards is just a data-centric connected warehouse, right? So we've got some automation, we have people interacted with automation, driven by data. And as Keith was indicating, everything about systems need to talk well. So we're constantly thinking about, what is that tool going to do and where is it going to plug in? And that's why we say optimize, then connect, then automate. Because if the first two steps aren't complete, you may be getting here and this is the iterative piece. You're iterating from this phase forward. And maybe you find out that I made an investment in automation for a process that shouldn't exist in the first place or should be completely different. So our goal is really to go through that step, get the most ROI in terms of people throughput, and then where you can selectively make investments in technology to kind of future-proof your business.
So finding and working with the right partner. We mentioned earlier that you want to go beyond just simply finding a vendor that helps you with your logistics solution. These are very complicated issues these days, and customers move very quickly. A vendor is going to sell you things. You want a partner that helps you work on your business. So you're going to look for things like that they're helping you identify that problem before we start throwing solutions at it. It's very easy for our sales forces, all of our sales forces, to get excited by the opportunity to quote. But what I know from experience with logistics customers is when they come to us for an equipment quote, they don't care about the wonderful equipment and solutions we offer. You want to move more product. You want to move more of your product to your customers. So when we talk about defining that problem, that challenge, it should include how much more product you're moving by when, so that the ROI can be measured by the solutions that you introduce. So a partner that's quick to give you quotes is an indication that they may be responsive, but they may not be helping you with your business. You want somebody that's going to take the time to work through those problems. These are big investments. They need to go well. And it's going to involve a lot of resource, which we know are constrained.
So we're just going to kind of wrap up here, but I think we just wanted to end on kind of where we began, right? So optimize, the whole goal is to, solving operational problems with labor issues, increase throughput, and how do we leverage technology and data to do that? Again, the optimize piece, that's, lean may not have any technology involved whatsoever. It could just be using existing data, as I mentioned before, right? So pulling data from WMS, labor management system, telematics devices, or just basic information you may be capturing passively as it is, dialing that in, finding opportunities for savings, travel, slotting, whatever. Once you get that standardized, now you can start looking at technology, because technology works really well on standardized processes. So the connecting piece, you're not automating the process necessarily. You might just be providing a tool to the employees you do have to make them happier with their job, make their job easier and a little faster, and more importantly, more accurate. So we just want to make sure that based on your current operation, everything is as safe and accurate as it can be. That's the connect piece. I also think the connect piece is really where we start diving into data, right? Because as you add some of these operator assistance type technologies that's producing data, that allows you to analyze again for your next initiative. We look at this linearly, but really the circles make sense. It's you kind of going back, starting the beginning, going back and forth, up and down this. Sometimes, you go through the first two stages 10 times before you even get to automate phase, but Once you have optimized your operation as much as possible, then it is maybe time to find some automated piece of equipment for your long haul runs or to move conveyance without having to physically put a person on it. So it is all about that journey, and as Keith said, helping understand that journey and understand your problem is the first step. And then finding someone who can help you navigate that journey, which is probably going to be, depending on your level of how big your projects are going to be and how many phases there will be, could be multiple years, right? So just going and kind of, that one looks good today, next year, that one looks good, let's throw that at it and hope they talk later. It's a lot better to understand the whole process and what your end state is and then kind of working backwards. Any questions?
Take questions from the audience. I'd love to take questions from you if you have them. Get too much feedback to talk. What kind of questions that we bring in your mind? What's the next challenge you have?
Well, if there's not any questions, we'll hang up. We've got a few more minutes in this room, so Keith and I will hang tight up here, and feel free to con up. And otherwise, we've got our booth. Swing by and talk to us there. Our booth numbers are here, but we're basically by the front entrance. Go ahead. Yeah, so for everyone, in case you didn't hear the question, it's a question on legacy equipment and legacy infrastructure within the building, and generally how does that fit into an optimization plan. So I guess it kind of depends on how connected you're going to be. I think there is a lot of new automation that basically you can retrofit in some cases, but the cost of doing so on an older piece of equipment, there's not a real strong ROI there. A lot of connected technologies, for instance, though, like operator assist, some of those are not even on truck technologies, or they don't require necessarily a specific style of rack or specific infrastructure. So those can be a little more, bolt-on, or maybe it's data. It's a data system. It's not even hardware. So some of those technologies do jive well with older equipment. But some of the newer equipment, what we're finding in newer technologies, it's either a legacy, it's an age of the equipment problem, it could be equipment software problem, or just generally, the processing power of the chip that's on the truck. So really, without diving into very specific details on each technology, I would say my answer is it kind of depends. So what I would do is, again, to Keith's point earlier on, I would say, what is the problem you're trying to solve? And there may be a short-term path of least resistance to get that tool in your operation, even if at that same time you start saying, okay, if I'm going to be acquiring new equipment over the next 2, 3, 4 years, what I need to know now so that when it comes in the door, it's future-proof, right, for some of this advanced technologies. So it really just kind of depends. Automation, like I said, is a little harder to tackle with older equipment, just from a retrofit perspective, than some of the other operator assist, what I call operator assist technologies.
One of the great ways I like to put inventory layout is over bronze. Here's your legacy equipment in slower moving inventory areas. So you can think of that. You might want to use your high technology with that. Your legacy equipment takes out the forward moving. So that way you still have that distribution log on. It's not interfering with that high volume. With that high volume equipment. What other questions? Thanks very much. Yes, sir. He's asking about the picked pallet, does it tie into the next pick location?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Does it tie into the next pick location and continue on for the operator?
For the automation? Yeah, so depending on which automation you're looking for, I think the end state for most automation, regardless of manufacturer, is to tie in the warehouse management system so that it is all system directed, right? So maybe today we're not going up into the rack and pulling it. Maybe that's not in your near term for automation, but we still want, maybe it's just for horizontal transport. We still want the WMS to know that you're dropping that pallet to a P&D and send something over there versus having to manually dispatch it each time. So as you add more and more automation, in my ideal world, we're taking it from the dock, putting it away, picking it, staging it, bringing it to a wrapper, pulling it from the wrapper, and staging it for outbound, all WMS directed. So from an automation perspective, that's something that's definitely doable. From a connected technology perspective, so maybe not automation, but an employee tool, productivity tool, accuracy tool, we do that already, where we integrate with WMS to maybe drive that truck to the next pick location automatically. Even if it's a manually operated lift, you could have somebody basically move forward and have it vector to that next position through a WMS integration. So even for non-fully automated technologies, we always go to what makes it easiest and what's going to get the strongest ROI. And we'll say one of the things that's difficult is, how old is your WMS? Does it take middleware? Is it system directed, or right now do you have employees who can cherry pick and just drop a pallet into any open position? That becomes a little more difficult to predictively drive the automated vehicle to the right spot when there isn't that system directed put away style. So it really takes a little discovery in terms of your WMS to say, okay, this is what you have, this is what it does, this is where we need it to be, and how does it talk to the automation? So I think that's part of finding, you don't have to have all your automation from the same manufacturer. What you want to do is keep in mind that all of that stuff does need to talk to each other. So we only have a couple more minutes before we're going to get the hook here. We can hang out up here if you have any questions. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, thanks for coming. If you want to stop by our booth, we're up by the main entrance. And I guess 1903 and 1703. We've got some cool technology to see there.
Thanks very much
Thank
for
you.
attending.